Welcome to the Garden Angelist, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Dee. How are you today?
I am great. I am just great.
Good. It's summertime and the living is easy.
I do love the summertime. Even though it's hot, I love the summertime. I love how the garden is starting to mature, you know?
Yes. All the hard work, and so at this point, you either have a luscious, yummy garden or you got a pile of weeds.
Or both.
I'm kind of in between. Yeah. I've been working on weeding. I try to go out every day, get a bunch of weeds, and eventually someday I won't have so many, I think.
Well, you just keep chipping away at it. There's a lot of weeds to chip away at, but every little bit helps. I weeded my main path on Saturday and a bunch of garden beds, and two ladies that I've hired who are wonderful. I'm giving them a shout out. They come over and help me, and it's made all the difference because I garden a huge garden.
I know you garden a huge garden. I need somebody to come over. I need an intern to come over. Somebody that doesn't know much about gardening and wants to kind of learn from me. They could learn by pulling weeds, digging holes.
Yeah.
Trimming.
Keep looking for that, Carol.
Yeah. So any of our listeners know somebody that wants to learn how to garden from the ground up, get their hands dirty and learn from doing, let me know.
There you go. I wish you the best of luck. I have found that if you pay money, it helps.
Oh.
So it needs to be a paid internship.
It would be a paid internship.
There you go. Do you have a quote for me or do I have a quote for you? Which way are we going with this?
I'll do the quote.
Go for it.
In his garden, every man may be his own artist without apology or explanation. Louise B.B. Wilder. And I think that's absolutely true.
I love that quote. Because you know what? If you like tractor tires that are painted turquoise and it's your thing, you go for it.
Exactly.
Whatever it is you like, you can be your own artist, and don't let anybody tell you that you're doing it wrong. Now, if you want to hire a garden coach like me to come in and give you some ideas, that's fine. But I am always gentle with people's gardens because I consider them a safe place, a sacred place.
Right, and so it should be the garden that you enjoy being in. And if you don't enjoy being in your own garden, well, something's wrong. You should enjoy being in it, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Speaking of things we enjoy in the garden, we both have the same flower blooming this summer in our gardens. Very common.
At the same time.
Yes, very common, I guess, native plant. And it is the coneflower, Echinacea.
Echinacea.
And it's in your favorite plant family.
Compositae.
Or Asteraceae.
Which is also Asteraceae.
Right.
It's both of those synonyms.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are not confusing these with black-eyed Susans, which are Rudbeckia.
Right.
This is Echinacea.
Echinacea. Most of them, the native Echinacea purpurea, which is the one that I have most of in my border, is a purple flower.
Uh-huh. And sometimes pink, depending on the variety of it. But yes, it starts out, it's usually purple. Hence the name. How did you say that? I say it purpurea.
I say purpurea.
Okay. And then there are all new kinds of varieties of Echinacea.
Right. But before we go there, can I talk about purpurea and Echinacea? I'll have to go back and figure out what I was reading or looking at. But botanical Latin is not a spoken language.
Right.
It is written. So however you say it is correct.
Well, that's sweet of you. Did you know we had somebody write in last week on our Instagram page, and they were giggling at how we pronounced, well, it was 2 weeks ago, and it was when we were doing the one on hydrangeas, and they giggled at our one for mophead hydrangeas, how we pronounced it, because you and I pronounce it differently.
Hydrangea macrophylla?
Right. And I said, at the beginning at least, macrophylla. And it's funny because this lady was from Texas, and she said that she pronounced it exactly like how I do. And then people from up north pronounce it like you do. And since there's no one from Rome here to tell us how to pronounce them, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Like I said, it's a written language, not a spoken language. So, purpurea, it's still a coneflower.
It is still a coneflower. So what's your favorite?
You know, I really just like the straight species of Echinacea purpurea. And I know the breeders have just knocked their socks off with everything from white to red to pink to orange to every shade of purple and everything in between. And they've come up with double flowering. And I'll tell you what, there's not many flowers I don't like. I don't like those double flowering cone flowers. I think they're atrocious looking.
Well, and the thing is, I've grown them a couple of times. I grew the coconut lime one years ago, and I grew wasn't it called Pink Double Delight? I grew that one. One of the problems with them is anytime you use a double flower, a lot of times pollinators have trouble with it.
Yes.
But also, these reverted back. After I grew them for a couple of years, they reverted back to the original coneflower. And then on top of that, they got the aster yellows. So I gave those up, and at this point in my life, I don't care about the double flowering types. I want to see that nice big cone.
Right.
Because that nice big cone is a seed cone, and that seed cone, most of the time, needs to be pollinated by an insect, and you know I'm all about pollinators. So.
Right. And I was looking out my window the other day. I've kind of got, and I'll call it sort of a river of coneflowers, most of them purple, that kind of go through my perennial border, which I call Plopper's Field because I just plop stuff in wherever. So I call it a river of coneflower. It's purely accidental. But it's kind of nice because I saw a yellow finch sitting on top of one the other day, just sitting there enjoying the garden. And I thought, that's wonderful. That's why I planted those.
Yeah, I think I saw that picture. I don't know if I saw it with the finch on top, but I think I've seen your river of coneflowers in a picture because you showed one of Plopper's Field the other day. And I have to say, I also like that dragonflies like to alight on them. And they sit there and they hunt from the coneflowers. And dragonflies, unfortunately, eat honeybees, but they also eat mosquitoes. And after this very wet year in Oklahoma, I'm grateful for the dragonflies for eating the mosquitoes. Are you ready to talk about the new varieties yet?
Yes.
'Cause I'm kind of a new varieties girl.
You are a new varieties girl. And I will say that I have some of these new varieties. I got them as trial plants. And they're kind of impressive. And whereas I don't like the doubles, I do like some of these colors. And I want you to tell me about them.
Okay, the ones that have different colors, of those, my favorite series is Cheyenne Spirit. Cheyenne Spirit is put out by Ball Horticultural, and I actually got to talk to the guy who created Cheyenne Spirit. And when we went to California Spring Trials, he was just standing there with them, and they had been out for like a couple of years. This is 2015, and they were the first unusually flowering colors and also heights type of coneflowers I had ever seen. And I got really excited about them, and I was like, I grow those. And he said, you do? And I said, yes. I go, how did you do it? How did you make uniquely colored flowers that were very, very hardy and came back every year? And he said, I took the seeds. He took the seeds from the different types of coneflowers, and he threw them all in a field. I mean, I'm sure he didn't throw them, but they cast them in a field, and then they let them all come up, and they let bees pollinate them back and forth, and then they grew that seed the next year, and the best of that seed they took out of the field, and they kept mixing them back and forth. That's why if you buy Cheyenne Spirit, they're going to be in the range between like a white coneflower all the way to purple. I mean, I've seen pinky purple ones, and in between there's orange and yellow, and they're also all different heights and even shapes, because some of them have reflexed petals and some of them have the straight ray of petals. So,
right,
one of the most fabulous plants out there, and I just bought a whole bunch more of them because my cutting garden was not doing very well, and I saw them at Lowe's, and I went over there and bought them. because the bees were all over them. And that's my favorite one because they're really unusual, and I like what you get. And you know what? You can take them because they're a seed strain. You can take them and you can cast the seed yourself. In fact, one of our friends, Fair Garden, has done that. And in my garden, they've reseeded themselves. And I get all different kinds of things.
Right. And then there's the Sombrero series from Darwin Perennials, and I've been growing some of these.
Love those too.
Orange, yellow, red. And I thought at first I wasn't going to like them, but I really do like them. They're a little bit shorter in my garden, and so I need to probably move them because they're kind of buried in the lush that we got from the spring. So I need to move them around a little bit, but man, they are really putting out the flowers.
Yeah, they're really good. And I was going to say that Sombrero, they don't have All-American selections yet. As far as I know, they've not been chosen for that. But I think they will be because they are really pretty strong. Of the ones I've grown, and I've done a bunch of trial ones, and I also bought the early one, which was orange. The first one that came out that I saw was orange. And it did really well. So when we got to trial the red and the gold, Granada Gold, I was really excited.
Yeah.
And I have to say, of the three that I've grown, the red is not quite as vigorous as the other two, but it is a gorgeous shade of red, and it has come back. I only lost one of them. So a pretty good plant. Cheyenne Spirit and also Powwow Wildberry, which we'll talk about next, they are both All-American selections, and there's good reason. Powwow Wildberry is a pink. It's a pink coneflower, and it's short, so it needs to go in the front of the border, and it is a powerhouse. I have Powwow Wildberry in probably 6 or 7 places in my garden, and it's just doing great. And I'll be honest, and you're going to find this odd, but of those versus Purpurea, just regular Echinacea purpurea, I actually have better luck with Cheyenne Spirit and Powwow Wildberry than I do the regular purple ones.
I can believe that.
I have a harder time growing those.
I can believe
that. And I
that.
don't know why. But I wanted to also say that seed strains tend to be really vigorous. And I think that that's why Cheyenne Spirit has done so well. And I think Powwow Wildberry is also a seed strain, but nobody quote me on that. And then there's also Powwow White. I tried Powwow White. It did not do well here. But that doesn't mean it won't do well in your garden.
Right. Yeah, things vary. One of the things about coneflowers, and there was just a big, I hate to say the market was flooded with them, but several years ago, the market just like everybody had all these new kinds of coneflowers. And gardeners were a little bit disappointed in some of them because they didn't return.
Extremely disappointed.
I was being kind. So the breeders came out and said, oh, well, the first year, don't let them flower. And then let them really focus on becoming a nice, strong plant. And then the next year, they might start flowering. So, again, it's that sleep, creep, leap that they talk about. It takes 3 years for a good perennial to really establish itself, although some perennials at 3 years are gone. But that is just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, those were. Every one of those I grew,
Yeah.
It died. And I did try the cutting off the flowers and letting it establish the roots better. I've since branched out into native cone.
Tell us about your native coneflowers. I don't really have, you've got some that I don't have.
I found some I found them various places. And so I really, first one I ever grew, other than Purpurea, was Pallida, Echinacea pallida. And it is the pale purple coneflower, and I've had some pretty good success with it. I've also lost some. It is not as vigorous as some of the other plants, but I really love the reflexed petals, and I love that they're thin.
Uh-huh.
I think it's a very beautiful plant. And then this year, I'm doing Echinacea, I don't know how to say, Tennesseeensis?
Tennesseeensis.
Yeah, Tennesseeensis, which is Tennessee coneflower. And our friend Gail from Clay and Limestone, who lives in Tennessee, I know she grows it with a lot of success. And I started it this year in one bed. And then I also started Echinacea atrorubens, which is the Topeka coneflower. And I had never seen it anywhere, but this year I saw it at the Tulsa Master Gardeners sale. And so I bought it. And I bought 3. and two of them are still alive. One died.
That's good.
And that's kind of my deal. If I buy 3 plants, one of them's going to die. What is that about?
I don't know what that's about. I don't know. But when
I always have trouble with that.
When I buy 3, I want 3 to live. Your garden is a lot bigger than mine. I don't think I have room for all the native coneflowers, so I got to stick with the Echinacea purpurea and then some of the different colors. And like I said, it's always in my mind. It's like some of these need to be moved, but now is not the time to move them. I kind of need to tag them and move them around this, maybe in the fall. Dig them up and move some out closer to the edge of the border, especially the shorter ones, the Sombrero series.
You don't want to move them in the heat.
Nope.
And yes, the Sombrero ones and Powwow Wildberry are both short. So grow them. So if you grow them this year, people start them in the front of your border. We didn't know how big the Sombrero series was going to
Right.
get.
You know what? They probably had it on the tag, but we don't read tags very well.
Sometimes we don't. But also we got a lot of plants at that exact moment, and you're trying to plunk those in the ground as fast as you can go.
Right.
Because, when people send you plants to trial, you want to do your very best by them, but sometimes you get them all at once, and then you've just got a big pile of plants to
That's
plant.
right.
That's my excuse.
That's right. So coneflowers are not without some issues.
True.
So tell us about those issues, Dee.
Okay, so according to what you say, Japanese beetles are a problem.
In my neck of the woods, they are. Yeah.
But I don't have Japanese beetles. Okay. Well, in my neck of the woods, we don't have Japanese beetles, thank you, God. But we do have silvery checker spot caterpillars. And they love all types of coneflowers, whether they are Echinacea or Rudbeckia. They will eat them down to the nubbins in Oklahoma.
They don't eat them here. I've never even heard of a silver checkered spot caterpillar.
Maybe you don't have them. They're really cute. They're very cute caterpillars. And because I have a lot of all the different types of coneflowers, I have a lot of silvery checker spots. Imagine how that works. And then grasshoppers, you know how that works. If you plant it, they will come.
That's right.
Grasshoppers like to eat the rays of the sunflowers. They like to eat the petals around the cone because they're creeps. I hate grasshoppers. And so I use Nola bait.
We don't have the grasshopper problem. We have grasshoppers, but not like hordes of them like you have. I think of...
Well, see, you get Japanese beetles. I get grasshoppers.
There you go. We get a few, but not like, not like I would think of them
not like
out west.
You know why we get so many? It's because it's dry.
Yes.
They always come this time of year when it's dry. So I use Nola bait for them as soon as I see baby grasshoppers. And this is going to, for those of you who are very sensitive about grasshoppers, you might want to turn down your volume for just a moment. So here's what happens. Nola bait is wheat bran that is coated with Nosema locust AE. So it is a disease that infects young grasshoppers, okay? Young grasshoppers eat the wheat bran because there's nothing a grasshopper loves more than wheat bran. They eat it, and what you do is you spray your garden with water first, you sprinkle the wheat bran all over the garden. It looks a little weird for a day, and it's not going to rain this time of year, so you aren't going to wash it off. And then the little grasshoppers eat it, and then guess what happens to the little grasshoppers?
They get sick and die.
They get sick and they die, but before they die, the adults eat them.
That's disgusting.
That is disgusting, but here's the thing. If you eat your young, then you deserve to die.
Exactly.
And so the adult grasshoppers die too. And so it is not going to hurt anything else in your garden, except for if you have crickets, which I don't have a lot of crickets in my garden. They're up by the house. And it kills grasshoppers. And here's some scary news. There was a fire that destroyed the main warehouse where Nola bait was made in Durango, Colorado.
Uh-oh.
But I looked it up, and they still are producing Nola bait. So they bought a new location, and they're working on it, and it is a little bit pricey, a little pricier than normal because, of course, it burned down. But you know what? It's great stuff, and it really does work because not only do they like a lot of things in your garden, they really also like perennial hibiscus. and they eat it to the nubbins.
And Dee, that's why I like talking to you. So I have never heard of Nola bait. I have never ever experienced enough grasshoppers that I thought I should put Nola bait out. So I guess I got Japanese beetles. You got grasshopper problems. It's always something.
Mm-hmm. Different climate, different bugs.
That's right.
But I'll take my grasshopper problems over stupid Japanese beetles. So if you plant coneflowers.
One last question.
Yep.
Do you cut off the seed heads or do you leave them all winter for the birds?
Well, when they're actively blooming, because they bloom a really long time, I cut them off to encourage them to keep blooming. But the last group, I leave them on. Was that the right answer?
That is a good answer. I'm too lazy to deadhead my coneflowers, so I just let them bloom, and then when they're done, they're done.
I just deadhead mine and when I'm over there deadheading the roses. And it's not like I go out there and really bust my tail feathers doing it.
Yeah, I just leave them. Now, I might cut a few coneflowers and put in a bouquet and put them inside. But I tend to just leave them because I'm lazy.
I understand that. I'm lazy too, kind of. Okay, so
we're going to talk about a vegetable now, which is actually two herbs. Two herbs.
Right, one of which is eaten like a vegetable, at least one variety.
Yes.
Of it. So, we're going to talk about dill and fennel.
Dill and fennel.
Which is beloved by bees and swallowtail butterflies.
Yay.
And red paper wasps who love to eat the swallowtail caterpillars. So, if you plant either one of them, you will have them forever.
That's right. If you let them go to seed, the seed will just overwinter.
Which they go to seed.
They'll come up all over the place.
So, do you grow dill?
I grow dill because I planted it once, and I like to give the illusion that I'm going to make dill pickles with my cucumbers, so I always like to have dill growing around the cucumbers. It is an illusion. I don't make pickles. I don't make dill pickles. I don't really like dill pickles. So I just mostly grow it for the ambiance that it gives the garden, and because I know that the swallowtail caterpillars will eat it, and I see those out there occasionally.
I grow dill for them too, because I don't really like dill on anything, hardly.
Oh.
So I just grow it. I mean, because a lot of people put it on fish.
Yeah, I don't eat. Yeah.
And
no,
you don't eat fish, so you aren't going to eat it that way. But it's just not. It's not one of my favorite herbs, and I never eat it. I just grow it out there for the caterpillars.
Right.
That's the truth.
For the ambiance.
Ambiance. It is pretty in a vegetable garden.
There is a local bakery here that makes a dill bread on Thursdays, and that is a delicious, delicious bread. I buy dill bread.
Which is made with dill seed, right?
Yes. I don't know what they put in it.
I bet it's dill seed, because I think if they put the ferns in it, the leaves, I think it would kind of melt into it, and that'd be that.
Yeah.
It's usually not cooked into things, the seed is.
Now,
and actually with dill pickles, most of the time they use seed to make dill pickles too.
The next herb, fennel, I don't grow fennel at all, so you even came up with a quote about fennel.
I did come up with a quote. Fennel, which is the spice for Wednesdays, the day of averages, of middle-aged people, fennel, smelling of changes to come. And that's by Chitra, and I'm sorry, Chitra, if I'm messing up your name, Banerjee Diva Karuni. I probably didn't say that right, and I apologize. It's from a book she wrote called The Mistress of Spices. And fennel, I had to do some research on fennel for this podcast, because I grow bronze fennel, which I just grow for ambiance, although it tastes really good. It tastes like licorice, but a good licorice, like anise. It is really pretty in the garden because it's bronze colored and it's leafy. And so when the swallowtail caterpillars, the giant swallowtail is the state butterfly for the state of Oklahoma, and I have a lot of them. And I have a lot of little baby swallowtail caterpillars, but the red wasps know where I keep my dill. So I've been moving them from the dill over to the fennel because they like it too. And that way they don't find them all. Because, they eat them all. There's nobody left. So it's a race all the time. And then it's just pretty, and it looks good in bouquets. But then there's also common fennel, which common fennel is just green. And I'm not even going to try to do you want to do the Latin on this?
On the Latin for the common fennel,
Yeah.
Feniculum vulgare.
So Feniculum vulgare smoky is the bronze fennel, which I never knew. Feniculum vulgare is the common type, which is a green herbal. And then there's the Florence type, which is Feniculum vulgare variety dolce. And it makes a bulb. And that's the one that you see in the store that is cut off and there's just the white bulb.
You're right.
And have you ever eaten that? Have you ever eaten that?
No, I told you I'm like fennel. I'm fennel free. I have no fennel.
Well, I love it grated in salads, and you can also cook it, but I don't like it cooked very much. I like it grated in salads with other vegetables, and it is a little bit licorice tasting, and my husband hates it, so we don't eat it very much. He has a lot of
Well, I love
preference.
licorice, so I bet I would like it.
Yeah, it's a very light licorice taste, and it is wonderful because it's crunchy. You could put it with cabbage too. It'd be good with that. Just like a slaw.
I'll have to try it.
It's worth a try.
Maybe I might plant some fennel next year.
And you want to harvest it when it's young, the bulb type, and you don't want to wait too long because one year I waited too long and then it wasn't good at all because it was too pithy. But when it's young and it's made a small bulb, that's when you should have it. Yum, yum, yum.
Well, that sounds like an interesting plant to grow, and heaven knows I need more reseeders out there in the garden because, I don't have enough. That's a joke.
I know, I got a lot too. And while we've been talking, a black swallowtail just came in and landed on top of my fennel. Isn't that cool?
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. He heard you. So, echinacea, the coneflower, is a well known as an herbal cure for colds. And then dill and fennel are supposed to help with digestion.
Right.
So that takes us straight into our dirt, which is about sort of a class of gardeners that I'm going to call herbalist.
That works.
You have a quote.
I do have a quote
about herbalist.
Just because it's natural doesn't mean you can be as stupid as you want with it. And this is by Susan Lynn Peterson, Western Herbs for Martial Artists and Contact Athletes, Effective Treatments for Common Sports Injuries. And I think that's a really good intro for herbalists.
Yes. And so to me, it's like this is a whole other kind of gardener. And these are those gardeners that tend to be a bit mysterious. And they tend to know stuff that the rest of us don't know about, like what they can do with different roots and seeds and leaves and all kinds of concoctions that they can make. And you can imagine them in their kitchen sort of stirring a pot of something that turns out like, well, this will cure everything.
Yeah, I think herbalists know quite a bit, and I think she also was making a good point that just because something's natural does not mean it's always safe. And so, poison ivy is natural. I would not eat it.
No. And I have some books there was a herbalist in the 20th century, which sounds so far back, the 20th century, Adelma Simmons, who is famous, and I have her book, The Christmas Herbal, Merry Christmas Herbal, and I guess she wrote a ton of books about herbs and how to use them and all kinds of recipes. And then somewhere along the line, I ended up with Culpepper's Herbal, which is an old book that many people consult for herbal recipes and remedies. And so our advice to people, like most of this stuff, don't just be looking stuff up on the internet and believe that it's the truth. You got to find really good sources of information before you start experimenting with herbs.
Yeah, you got to be careful and not just herbs, anything that you eat that grows. You need to be careful because some parts of the plant are edible sometimes and some parts are inedible. And, I actually got asked by the two ladies who helped me garden. We were actually weeding around the coneflowers, and one of them asked me, can you just take the leaves off the echinacea and chew them up, and it'll help you with your resistance to colds or whatever? And I said, well, no, it's actually the root. And I said, but I don't know how you
Right.
do it. And I would suggest you just buy some echinacea capsules at the store instead of digging up your not so easy to grow echinacea plant and destroying it.
Exactly. Or I'm reminded of like plants that are poisonous. Like we talked earlier this spring about pokeweed salad.
Right?
And pokeweed is a very poisonous plant, but if you catch it at just the right time, you can make, and you boil the heck out of it, I guess. You can make a pokeweed salad with it, but I never would.
Well, you don't really eat it as a salad. You kind of eat it like you do greens like spinach when you eat them cooked. So yeah, you cook it once and then you cook it. You boil it, you pour off the water, and then you cook it again. I've actually made it several times, but you got to be careful. You know, there's some different rules about it, and not everything you read on the internet's true. And if you're wanting to wildcraft, then you should listen to somebody who's really
Right.
good about it. Good at
And
it.
then like rhubarb leaves are poisonous, but the stem is delicious, I hear. I don't need a lot of rhubarb.
I bet you can grow rhubarb where you live, can't you?
Oh, you can grow tons of rhubarb here. It's very growable.
Rhubarb is really, really good with a lot of sugar, but it needs a lot of sugars, as do gooseberries. You know, my grandmother up in Missouri, she grew both rhubarb and gooseberries, and she loved strawberry rhubarb pie, and she loved gooseberry pie, which I've had both of them. And yes, they're both good. Kind of sour.
Yeah,
but
and
good.
so those very, very sour things, sometimes I think it's just a sugar delivery system. Just eat the sugar.
It is.
But I look at books of herbs, and I think that is such a specialty. And so I've kind of stayed away from it. I haven't tried to figure out how to make the garden make me healthier by eating it. I just think gardening makes you healthier by going out and doing gardening.
Right, and you also eat your vegetables that you grow, and, you know, more vegetables we eat, the better off we are, right?
I will say that is true. I love the vegetables that I grow, but I only grow the ones I like.
And that is that a limited palette, Carol?
Well, it does exclude a few things, but we don't have to go into all of that.
Yeah, we can save that for another podcast. Vegetables Carol won't grow.
Yeah. Well, are there some that Dee won't grow?
I really like almost all vegetables, almost all, but not all. I'm pretty eclectic eater. But you're going to try fennel now, right?
I am going to try fennel. I'm going to try it next year. I'm not going to buy fennel from the grocery store because that's not really
won't be
trying
good.
fennel. That's not trying fennel. No, you
No.
got to grow it. I will try to grow it, and then I will try it next year.
Well, I can't wait to hear about that. That'll be exciting for next year. Go
We
ahead.
honor and respect herbalists. We neither one are an herbalist.
No, we are not. So it's been great chatting with you over the garden gate today.
Great chatting with you as well.
And we should tell everyone where they can find us.
Go for it, Dee.
They can find us on thegardenangelists@gmail.com if they want to ask us some questions about things we do know about. They can find us on Facebook at The Garden Angelist. They can find us individually at May Dreams Gardens and Red Dirt Ramblings, which are our blogs, and we also are on Facebook under those names. We are also all on Instagram, and The Garden Angelist has a page on Instagram, as do both of us. And Twitter, we're all there too. We are not on Snapchat because we can't figure out how to do it.
No, we're too old.
But our kids
We're
do.
too old.
We're part of a different generation. Anyway, that's all for now. We hope to hear from you guys. Ask us any question you can. And if we don't know the answer, we will try to find someone who does. Have a great day, Carol.
Bye, Dee. I will talk to you in a week.
Okay, bye-bye.